gotten this opportunity of moderating this session with such esteemed panelists. Thank you, Business World, for that. So I've already been advised that we are running a little short of time, so I'll jump straight to the topic. Cost to the patient. I think all of us as healthcare professionals know what that means to us. All through the journey of the patient, right from the online consultation or OPD consultation to prescription writing, medicines, diagnostics, procedures, hospital admissions, everything boils down to how to give the best quality to the patient, keeping the cost in mind. Cost for the patient and obviously in turn cost for the organization itself. Supply chain management and throughout this process, supply chain management, I think we all would agree is the highest expenditure for any healthcare organization. And the central role for this is the procurement team. So through the experiences of my panelists, we'll be taking on this discussion. I welcome all the panelists, Dr. Venkatesan, Dr. Akar, Mr. Pradeep and Ms. Urvashi. So Dr. Venkatesan, like I said, supply chain management is highest or probably the second highest expenditure for any healthcare organization. How do you manage the risks which are, the immense risks which are involved with that, like over ordering or less ordering in turn causing wastage or crisis in the organization? How do you manage all of that?
Good morning, everybody. In healthcare, particularly in hospital, supply chain takes a major role because from the supply chain department, almost 30 to 35% revenue comes. Almost the EBITDA numbers are protected by supply chain department, by pharmacy and consumables and the procurement cost. I heard the previous panel discussion saying that, one, you can increase the patient revenue or reduce the cost. Reducing the cost, major burden is with the supply chain department. So the inflation and the dollar fluctuation, always there. Every year, supply chain takes that burden of, accepting the price increase by 5 to 7%, but the companies, the vendors comes up with the 15 to 20% price hike every year by, because of this inflation and the dollar fluctuation and all. And the transportation cost has been increased in the double digit this after last 2 years. We are seeing tremendous growth in that industry. A big challenge is there to manage the cost within the given budget. So also the another big task is managing the clinicians and the finance. So clinician needs something, what he wants, the different type of equipment, or he may be asking a kind of high-end equipment, but our finance gives the budget of, the middle-level equipment. So managing these two is a very big challenge. Supply chain works very hard to balance both, bringing the cost reduction as well as managing the budget. So one is that. So the other thing, we also introduced the smart procurement. Everything done based on the data analysis. So data-driven based on the procurement happens. We do a reorder level, reorder quantities are fixed in the system. Nowadays, every hospital has the high-end HIS system. Automatically, it does that, the generating the demand quantity. It's basically demand and supply. Based on the demand, system automatically generates the quantity. We, as an advanced level, as a max, we have done auto procurement. So our guys never intervene in the releasing the purchase orders. System automatically generate the requirement and automatically it release the order to the vendor. The vendor is finalized by us in the system. We have fixed this vendor, this product, this price. It's fixed for a year. The contract has been fixed. Based on that, the system automatically releases to the vendor, vendor supplies. So these are all automation happens. So based on the automation, we can reduce a lot of cost, also save the time, and we can mitigate the stock shortages. And the other thing, risk. Risk mostly happens during the pandemic and the during the crisis times. So we all, evidence that a lot of crisis happened during the pandemic of oxygen shortages and some drugs and consumable shortages. So we have to have good relationship with the suppliers. We have to create the supplier base, and we should maintain the relationship and get the adequate supply as and when required. So these are all the good practices we can implement to mitigate the challenges and risks. Thank you.
Absolutely. Sir, you spoke a lot about automation, which of course we are using in almost every part of healthcare now. Automation and procurement. But I assume that also comes with its own set of challenges. So Mr. Pradeep, I'd like your opinion on what are the biggest challenges you face in procurement, in terms of, because there are data silos, there is still lack of integration with the system. So how does digitization or automation in this case has helped you, and what are the challenges there?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Shelly. So if you talk about traditional supply chain, we have come a long way, because earlier the supply chain used to be managed manually. The people who started working in healthcare supply chain, they must be remembering that the ordering, the indenting, the issuance, everything was manual. But most of the hospital and healthcare providers now using HIS, that is Hospital Information System, and some ERP is inbuilt with the hospitals. So to manage the day-to-day operations of the supply chain, there is some kind of software which is available across all the healthcare providers. But the challenge is that there is data. But how to collate that data, how to get right information from that data, that is most important. So we have used the digitization, but how to use the data which is coming from the uses of that HIS or ERP, that is very important. So that is the biggest challenge which I think most of the people must be facing. How you can use the data, like what is your procurement history, what are your most used molecule, what is your indenting pattern, what are your most prominent manufacturers. So compiling all those things required a tremendous task, right? And still lot of these calculations and collations are being done manually through Excel, because you can get the reports from HIS, but to get intelligence and to get the right insights, you have to do some working in Excel, right? So right now, lot of people, lot of healthcare providers are shifting towards BI, business analytics. But any kind of digitization or business intelligence can only be successful when there is human intelligence involved in BI, right? No AI or BI can help you if there is no human intelligence involved. So what you want to see in your supply chain, you need to be aware and you need to be very focused, be in terms of supplier selection, be in terms of formulary finalization, be in terms of your consumption pattern and all. So you need to know about all those things, what you want to see and what you want to monitor. First, you identify these monitoring mechanisms, monitoring criterias and KPIs. Then, basis on your requirement, start monitoring all those things with the help of data which you would get from HIS. But yes, these kind of tools, business intelligence tools and artificial intelligence are definitely going to help in transforming the supply chain in long run.
Absolutely. So, like you rightly said, as of today, if we talk about today, we can analyze vendor performance. We can analyze our plan our ordering based on our previous order history or vendor quality assurance. But what about new procurements? What about vendor evaluation? What about selecting which vendor or which equipment is right for me today? I mean, when we talk about procurement, is everything from a small paper to a big equipment. So, Dr. Akar, you are involved with, equipments like radiology equipments. How do you, I mean, of course, there can be no automation which can make you decide which equipment to go for. How do you go about that? How do you decide on your procurement processes?
Firstly, thanks of all BW Healthcare for having me on this prestigious forum. So I'll give all of you a very different insight into this because like radiology is a very important aspect for our diagnostic setup. So first and foremost, we have to decide upon what the clinical requirement is, what type of scans we want to do, and what the clinical requirement of the patient, of the clinicians is there. For example, if I talk about different modalities, if I speak about a CT scan, and we intend to do specialized studies like the angiographies, the cardiac CTs, the lung perfusion, the assessment of the nodule, or if we are planning to do a lot of research work, we need to see what the requirement is of the patient, what the demand is in the area that the machine has to be set up. So once we are sure of this clinical requirement, then we have to take the next step as to decide and shortlist what type of machine that we are looking into. If I talk about the MRI, we have a 1.5 Tesla or a 3 Tesla. So there's a huge cost difference to both these MRI. And in 3 Tesla, we do specialized MRI like the perfusion, the functional MRI, the traction, the DTI, the difficography, and all those things. We also have to evaluate for the throughput, the workload in the center. If we are planning to, if we are expecting a workload of around 20 to 30 CT scans, we can put a basic 16 slice machine which can deal with this workload. But if we are expecting anywhere around 50 to 100 cases, then we have to choose a modality which gives us that throughput. So we have to decide for the clinical efficacy. Once that is shortlisted, then we go on to the technical capabilities. We start seeing the machines across different vendors, and we also have to see whether these new machines that we're going to shortlist, when we first assess that they fulfill our technical requirement, we have to make sure that it integrates with the current system that we have. Like for example, if it has an AI workstation along with, do I also make sure that all my other modalities which are there in the center are also transferred to this, so that I can play around with the images and help the clinicians. And in turn, the main motive is to help patients giving better outcomes. So when we shortlist these vendors, we first assess the quality of the images that are being produced and the resolution, which will help solving these clinical requirements. Once all this is done, then we shortlisted a vendor, and we have to even see the logistic support behind it, so that we ensure that there is minimum downtime. Because after all, these are machines, and they are they will eventually break down at some point of the time. So we even make an effort to see the warehouses of these vendors and see what the the support spare parts are. And once we ensure that we have bargained the best deal, we make sure that the negotiations are in place. And the cost of the machine is not only the only cost, there's a huge running cost to this. The AMCs, the CMCs, the power requirement of every machine, and also the depreciation of these machines, which are a huge cost to running a diagnostic center with radiology as part of it. So after all of this is done, then we shortlist the machine, and this helps us in deciding and making the decision and in the procurement.
Yeah, actually, so funnily enough, if I place an analogy, in terms of lab, in lab we do have the liberty of bringing in the equipment, validating it with vendor support, and go for stringent and be willing to invest in stringent validation of an equipment. If it works with our work ethics, our quality protocols, well and good. If not, then we can, sort of ask the vendor to take it back, which of course you don't have that liberty in radiology. Once it's done, it's done. So this was the private organization outlook to that. I'm sure there would be different procurement strategies when it comes to government. So Urvashi ma'am, I'd like your opinion on how do government regulations and government public procurement policies differ from private, and what are the learnings that both the sectors can get from each other?
Yeah, thank you, Shelly. That's a very important question. And I think, in government, one of the big challenges we have is tremendous fragmentation, because, we have different health schemes, programs, we have different levels of the health system. So that is one level of complexity. The other is that states themselves have their own regulations, their own guidelines around public procurement in the healthcare space. So I think both those issues, at least I've been working on in the policy space, to say that we need greater centralization, because when you have so much fragmentation, there's obvious challenges. It's very difficult to achieve economies of scale. It's very difficult to really have that bargaining power with your suppliers to ensure consistent quality. So I think a lot of those issues exist when you have so much fragmentation. And so I think that is one of the efforts that we are trying to make, is to get greater centralization, get greater integration really across all these different systems and levels. The other is that instead of having so many differing state guidelines and state regulations, if we can have one central kind of, at least broad enabling guideline or regulation around this, to say that, this is how it should be done. Of course, state governments will always have the freedom to, adapt that to their context. But I think right now it's just a lot of heterogeneity between states, which obviously makes the landscape confusing. So I think that's the other direction in which we're going. The third is, of course, I think digitization, technology, as I think has been a consistent theme on the panel, that, we're trying to use technology more and more to streamline the procurement processes and also inventory management, also, reduce stockouts, because these are very common problems, in the public health system. So I think that is a third very important area, using AI or using other types of, technology, and also training the workforce, because I think that's very important. Ultimately, it's the workforce that manages those systems that needs to be trained, that needs to be aware. So I think those are, I would say, 3 or 4 of the sort of key directions that we're trying to take, at least in the public policy and, public healthcare system.
To add to that, I recently read an article where, it says that government is easing the procurement of products from outside of India. What is your opinion on this? Where there is a lack of domestic options, still it's a little hard to procure equipment from outside. So what is your opinion on that? Would that help, or more of Indian options would help?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to do that because, of course, we need to invest in the Indian options, in the indigenous options, and I think, that's a whole other set of initiatives and work that is happening on how do you promote indigenous, both innovation, research innovation, as well as manufacturing. So I think that has to remain obviously a continued push. But from a patient perspective, we cannot wait, and say that, okay, when it comes, then we'll get something. So I think if there are ways to make that process easier, then those should certainly be adopted, because I'm looking at it purely from the patient side, that patients need to have access to the best of technologies that can be available anywhere. So I think there's certainly movement in that direction, as you said, and there's a lot that we can do to make that process easier. But like I said, the indigenous part has to be a very, very strong push. And of course, we're doing that simply because of our scale and diversity. It is very critical for us that we reach that level of sort of self-sufficiency, if you can call it. But I don't think from the patient side we can say that, oh, we are just waiting for that. So I think both sides needs to go together.
So,
Here I have a say here, like indigenous and imported equipments. How many of us accepting indigenous machines? That is the biggest question mark. And how many of the innovation companies, Indian innovation companies, giving the same quality what the MNC company machine gives? So there is a gap. We should accept it and ask our innovation companies or the indigenous manufacturing companies should give that kind of quality. It is not cost matters. Cost, lesser cost, but the quality is also non-comparable with the MNC products. So we should increase our quality standard. We should give a right output, for the clinicians. For example, like we have indigenous robot, we have MNC robot. So how many of us buying indigenous robot? And 95% is MNC and only 5% is indigenous. So our clinicians' acceptability is less. So the quality should be given by the company up to the MNC companies. That's like monitor, many other equipments have been produced in India, but their sales is not even 10% compared to the imported equipments. So I would like to say the company should give good quality, not concentrating on the cost. Lower cost is not the matter. The matter is, equivalent quality is expected. Thank you.
So
absolutely.
I would like to add here, like in pharma segment, most of the pharma demand has been, catered by Indian pharma companies because lot of approval, a lot of quality approval credentials is in pharma space, and we are very much dependent on and very, very much confident about our pharma supplies. Similarly, medical consumables also, a lot of companies are coming into medical consumables segment wherein the quality is good and all. So what I would like to add is there lot of support is required from government side in innovation, which is required by the companies because lot of research and innovation required, lot of funding is required to match to the quality of the MNCs which are which they are providing in their product lines. So like there is pharma which has come up brilliantly and medical consumables also coming up nicely. I think government should support also to medical device manufacturers. They should provide some support, financial support or some grants and all so that they can match up the quality of the multinational manufacturers.
Absolutely. So basically, the lack of trust is something we are talking about here, and I would say, of course, the instinct comes that if it's so cheaper than the international product, then there might be some quality issue there. And sadly enough, I think on a smaller level also, as healthcare organizations also, sadly enough, we are finding it very hard to fight against the price war, to the price to the patient. And that does, I mean, it's become like either quality or cost. But that might not be the case, but my point is that it goes across like that. And there is a very thin line between balancing the cost and quality. Right, with the need of continuous improvement, finding gaps in quality and continuous quality improvement, investment is something which is always required, and balancing that, I think, becomes a challenge. So what is, Dr. Venkatesan, what's your opinion on that? How do you balance quality and cost with continuous improvement?
We need to give some cost for the quality. We can't get the quality at the, whatever cost we are thinking about. So in oncology, like I've seen some oncologists here, in oncology, like 60% of the high-end drugs, immunotherapies, are imported. And our internal margin is 10, 12%, 15%, not more than that. So the cost is increasing day by day. It's very difficult to balancing, cost versus the, the growing cost. Like most of the equipments we are importing, most of the drugs we are importing. So the indigenous products, what we are using is 30%. So in that scenario, reducing the cost is very difficult. So the MNC product prices are fixed based on the dollar price. So every year, as I told you earlier, every year we get a pressure to increase the cost by 15 to 20%. So this is the right scenario. Cost is growing. ENY has a study in the US that in another 20 years time, the non-clinical labor cost is going to increase by 3 times. So that's kind of survey. Cost is going to increase. So you need to increase the unit price to manage the business, or you need to bring some new business to increase, manage the business to reduce the cost. The current scenario is in another 10 years time, cost is going to increase. There is no second thought about it. And also a lot of new technology comes in, new products, new drugs and new equipments are coming into the hospital, which will definitely increase your capex as well as opex. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, procurement team is something which is very, very important there. Dr. Akar, technical knowledge of an equipment, technical knowledge of the clinical scenario, like you said, is very important while you are procuring, as well as the how you negotiate with the vendor, how you select the vendor, what are the contracts of your terms and conditions of your contract. That all matters. So what do you think? Who all should be the stakeholders in the procurement team and deciding the price and equipment and what kind of services do we provide?
So the stakeholders in the decision making, of course, has to be the management. And when we as an organization go out and think about procuring any equipment, we do speak with our clinician colleagues and try to find out, what the requirement is, whether so many numbers would come out, and because it's a huge upfront cost. Apart from the clinicians, we try to even see the prescriptions that come, to us, and how many patients, the frequency of the prescriptions, the clinical requirement. Apart from that, the technical experts, we need to talk to the procurement experts about the quality of the machine, the key softwares involved in it. So because we don't want the equipment that we are going to purchase should be outdated very soon. We want it to last its lifespan being at the forefront. Because in this ever-changing healthcare ecosystem, there are a lot of changes. A machine becomes outdated very soon, or newer softwares come. So we want to see whether there are any upgrade paths available or not. And most importantly, we have to do a cost-benefit analysis, and we also have to keep our finance team at the helm of the decision making, so that we know that that would help our organization in being sustainable, and which is paramount for all public as well as private organizations. So we keep involved all these people before taking these decisions. And in order to keep ourselves updated, like I'm a radiologist born in a radiology family, and all my family members are either radiologists or pathologists. So we keep attending conferences, take CMEs, continuously meet our colleagues, and I keep calling the application specialist over to my center to gain more awareness as to what is latest, what is coming up, so that will help us, to be at the forefront and eventually benefit the patients. So the first point that I started was to initially gain what the clinical requirement is. That would eventually help us to procure the right equipment at the then go in for the right costing.
Yeah, so more than vendor driven, it has to be organization driven. Rather than vendor coming to us and telling us put this, we need to know our answer before that. So with just 1 minute left, I'd request your closing remarks, Dr. Venkatesan.
Yeah, healthcare gives importance to supply chain for the past decade. We are seeing giving the importance, and we have a lot of pressure on cost. We are facing, and we have to take it forward. There is no other option available, and I'll just leave it to my colleagues to say something.
So I want to sum up by saying that we should continuously monitor the market trends, the technological advancements, and the evolving clinical needs before procuring any equipment or modality.
Yeah, so I will sum up with saying that supply chain is very prominent department of all the healthcare providers because they are adding in around 35 to 40% into top line, and then COGS, and that is that they are also adding into bottom line. So supply chain resilience is very important, because you need to understand what you require, and that should be available at right time, at right cost, and with the right quality. So supply chain is very important department, and we need to evolve further to improve our functions so that organizations can benefit with the use of supply chain department in a effective manner.
Okay, it's already showing time's up. So very quickly, so yeah, I think, I agree. It's a very important area. I think we need to keep building more expertise in this as well. And not just private system, but the public health system, needs to do that as well. And of course, using greater technology, etc. But I think we need to keep finding ways to make sure that it's not cost versus quality. It's always this cost versus quality, but somewhere, we'll have to find a way where we are able to reasonably achieve both. And I think that's hopefully, where our policies will also move to try and enable that.
Yeah, so it was, I think, indeed a great discussion. Supply chain management definitely is the most important aspect of a healthcare organization, most expensive aspect, and most sensitive also in terms of balancing cost and quality. We need to be very, very careful of who are the decision makers while we are procuring something, especially which is clinically relevant. It has to be clinician driven, it has to be technically driven, and of course, cost plays a major part in it. So stakeholders should definitely be an entire team and cannot be just one or two people deciding what to procure. Thank you so much, all of you, for being so patient with me and giving your insights. Thanks a lot.